or I would like to acknowledge the more than 70 traditional owner groups of the Great Barrier Reef on whose Sea Country Aims research has taken place. And we pay our respects to these First Nations people, their elders past, present, and also their future leaders of tomorrow. I acknowledge their continuing spiritual connection to their land and Sea Country, which is a big priority within AIMS. And now I'll bring this back this way and I'll make this full, and I hope you all can see that now. So I'll start by quickly introducing the Australian Institute of Marine Science, which is a federally funded research institution and a strategy-based institution in Australia, and is basically an institution where our research supports the sustainable growth, management, and protection of tropical marine ecosystems. And our work ranged from all the way from Ningaloo in Western Australia through the north, all the way down the Great Barrier Reef. So you can think of a marine arc of all of the north of Australia or the tropical Australia. Our commitment is to deliver marine research that improve ocean health, protect coral reef from climate change. And this is meant to create economic, social, and environmental benefits for all of Australia. So a lot of the research that is done around the GBR or the Great Barrier Reef is done at AIMS. And today I was invited to come here and I said, what part of the research I do at AIMS could be interesting for a forum like this? And I decided to go with a relatively simple story about my favorite organism in the reef. And I am gonna say introducing the charismatic megacoral of the Great Barrier Reef, which is the tabular coral of the genus Acropora. And you probably all have seen it, and it's in about 3/4 of the backgrounds of the speakers we have today, and are those corals that grow as a bit of a table with a stalk and a top that it you can see from the front. You have seen them in animations in Finding Nemo. It's very common. If you have been to the mid-shell or offshore Great Barrier Reef, you are likely to have seen it, and in some inshore areas you can see them as well. However, the recent work that we have done in collaboration with other partners from different universities and using the long-term monitoring data that AIMS generates have shone a bit of light on how important tabular corals are for the functioning of the Great Barrier Reef. They are very unique, as I was describing before. They have a base that grows quite robust and then a big top. So we are looking at them here from the bottom looking up. And we recently put out a publication that highlighted how many different ecosystem services they provide and how important they are from the reef. They are critical for small and large fish that either live and eat and feed from themselves, or they use their space between them and the substrate as shelter. So if you also have been swimming around the Great Barrier Reef, you will notice that a lot of the nice to see and tasty fish we enjoy from the Great Barrier Reef, like the emperors and the snappers, actually, when they are juveniles about this size, rest underneath these crevices. The charismatic megacorals, as I like to call them, are really important also for maintaining coral macroalgae at bay, because they take space very quickly and make the herbivory of parrotfish and other herbivores more concentrated in the areas where they are not. And they often provide a lot of three-dimensional structure to the reef. They grow, as I think Garrett was saying, as a multi-story building, and they have multiple layers. Some people argue that there are areas of the Great Barrier Reef that once it has been a long time from the previous disturbance, you can have technically more than 100% coral cover, because you have the overlay of all these beautiful branches. And one thing that we didn't look at before in fine detail, and that now we have with the long-term monitoring data, is how important they are for the recovery of the reef after disturbances. And when we look at about 120 reefs that we have been monitoring for over 30 years, and we compare how quickly the reef recover after disturbances, when the tabular corals help in that recovery compared with when they don't come back or they don't help. And what we noticed was that they recover about an average of 5% recovery of coral cover per year when the tabular corals are there, and about 0.5%, a bit less than 0.5% when they are not there. So just to give a bit of perspective, if we were to think of how long it would take for the reef to go from, let's say, 5% coral cover, which is what you often have when you have a big disturbance, to, let's say, 30% coral cover, which is what is often considered a relatively healthy coral cover. If you have a high tabular corals, so you have high abundance tabular corals helping you with that recovery, that takes in between 5 and 7 years. With a little bit of variability, it could go to 10 years. It could be as quick as 4 years sometimes. When you have low tabular corals, that takes up to 35 years. And sometimes when you see that variability, it could take as long as 70 years. So it makes a huge difference. And why is this so important? Well, they are unique. They have a unique combination of traits. They grow fast, but other corals also grow fast. They reproduce really well. They recruit and recover after disturbances quite well. But very importantly, they grow really large. They are basically the only fast-growing coral in the GBR that reaches the sizes that they reach, which means you need less number of individuals, colonies, to be able to provide that coral cover service. And here I'm just using a little video, a little set of images, and this is from quite a few years back from Terry Dunn's work during the 80s and 90s, just to show graphically a little bit what I'm talking about. So this is a reef that was sampled every year for about 12 years we have here. And you see how it's been having quite a lot of tabular coral there. And then there was a disturbance. There was COTS event, and it ate a lot of the tabular coral, and it sort of degraded quite quickly, and it stayed like that for a couple of years. But then the tabulates started to come back. So this is yearly photo. So this is 1 year. That's the next. That's the next. That's the next. So only in 4 years, you saw in that little picture how quickly that can happen and how important that can be. So, because I was told I was challenged to speak for only 5 minutes, and I have been known for never being able to do that, I decided to leave you with a single message, which is look for and look after the charismatic megacoral of the Great Barrier Reef. Every time you go to the reef, pay attention to them, notice how amazing they are, and let's together do as much as we can to make sure that they continue to be there helping the Great Barrier Reef recover after disturbances.